So this pillar is evaluating how well your teams are handing work off, closing loops, communicating during transitions or high volume or cross-market operations. This is often where high-performing teams quietly lose their efficiency. So a classic example of this is a maintenance issue is resolved in the field, but it never gets communicated back to your guest services team, leaving the guest waiting for an update that should have been immediate and would have likely produced a higher guest satisfaction score. So you really need to ask yourself, do our teams operate as one system or as separate parts, hoping that everything just connects on its own?
Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show. This is your essential playbook to grow and scale your vacation rental business with advice and insights from the best in the biz. I'm your host, Linnell Gordon. Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show. I'm Linnell Gordon, your host, and I'm happy to welcome Erin Booth today. Erin has worked in property management for how many years have you worked?
I'd say over 15.
Over 15 years. So she knows the in and out. She's been GM. She's done so much in property management, guys. Right now, she's the founder and principal at something called the Booth Collective. And she specializes right now in helping property managers and vacation rental companies to navigate the complex growth movements. And I'm just going to say off the bat, she worked for Vacasa. She understands this. She worked in New York. It's not like this is something that is new to her. This is something that she saw a need for, that people really need. And she's like, let me help people. But whether it's entering new markets or integrating acquisitions or rebuilding operations that have outgrown their systems, with leadership experience as the Chief Operating Officer and the Chief Expansion Officer at Summit Mountain Rentals, Erin brings a very unique experience, guys, on how to align people, processes, and technology so you can scale your business without losing control. And I'm excited to hear what she has today to say to us today. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. That was quite the intro.
Well, you have quite the background, and so we're really excited. I'm really excited to hear about this 5-pillar diagnostic stress test you have for property managers. Tell me what this is about, and how can we help property managers grow from this?
Sure. So the pillar diagnostic, it really was born out of a couple of conversations that I had been having with property managers where they were simply asking, but where do I focus on? What do I need to pay attention to? Because as a property manager, there's always something going on. And typically individuals will put out the fire that's right in front of them, right? That's the day to day, whether there's an HR problem, it's not even day to day, it's minute to minute, We all know that. Whether it's an HR issue, and then there's a homeowner issue, and then there's a guest nightmare going on, not to mention you're switching softwares and there's a glitch, or you just developed a new product and you can't figure out where to go next. So in those conversations, I found that people were really looking for something tangible and all-encompassing to really look at their operation as a whole. But in the 5 pillars really break that out into what I believe are the 5 main areas that create stress on an organization to attempt to kind of pick it apart.
Yeah, what are those 5 areas?
So it's people, process, workload, coordination, and tech.
Okay, so workload and coordination. What is workload?
So workload, specifically as it pertains to the 5 pillars, it's really ensuring that the work that is being done is not being built on heroics. There are several teams rather where there is a strong player, an extremely strong player. And although there may be 5 people touching that one specific area, there's one individual who's really solving that problem over and over and over again. So that type of an organization is built on heroics. And although it depends on your size, but for larger operators, especially larger operators in transition, that can be quite a sticky place to be in.
I'm sure you've seen that before. And there was one more that you mentioned I wasn't sure of. It began with a C, which is the other pillar that begins with a C.
Coordination.
Coordination. Talk to me about coordination.
Coordination is interdepartmental coordination. I have seen far too many organizations where individual departments are siloed and they are all individually operating extremely efficiently, but the coordination breaks down in between them. There just isn't a structure that's built out for that unique operation. They could be multi-state, they could be in an office and sharing a wall with their neighbor that they're not coordinating with. So it really is business specific, but that is the coordination pillar. It's how they speak to each other.
And we see that a lot in maintenance and housekeeping.
Sure.
We see that a lot. That coordination there is so important. In your experience, what are the earliest warning signs that a company's operational structure is going to have problems with growth? They're starting to have problems. What's the earliest warning signs for that?
If the announcement has been made that the growth is going to occur in the near future. Let's say the owner of the company says we're going to go into a new market or we're going to acquire another small property management company. You'll start to see attrition. You'll start to see quiet quitting amongst the team.
And you're talking about the team members and not the properties, not the owners.
Team members. Yeah.
There you go.
Team members.
All right. They start to quietly leave.
Yeah.
I've seen that. You're exactly right. I've seen that too. I hadn't thought about it. I'm putting this into my head as you talk. And guys, we have seen this happen. I've never heard it put that way. You're very unique in the way you're putting that. Let me ask you this. So, how do people, and now we know what workload dynamics are, how do they shift as vacation rental companies move from like a small portfolio to, say, multi-market operations?
Sure. I just did this with Summit Mountain Rentals. It was a 25-year-old company based out of Breckenridge, Colorado, extremely successful, based on the regulations that were coming down that are going to drastically impact, our industry in that area. The owners of the company decided it was time to try to expand somewhere else to solidify the business. So that is something that I was just a part of. But I need you to just refresh me on the question specifically.
So how do the people in the workload shift when that happens? What are you supposed to do? How do you shift that around to make it work for growth as opposed to the opposite?
Yeah, I think that something that people will ignore is the culture of the organization, because there's so much talk about culture.
Yeah.
And what is our culture, and how do we operate in that way? And when you're trying to grow, that's something that I found operators really do put by the wayside. It's not something that I believe someone needs to pay attention to. Building a culture, maintaining a culture, that's a long game. That is not something that you set and forget, but it is something that should be paid attention to right at the beginning of those decisions, and truly paid attention to in earnest, to assess where the culture is and can the current culture withstand the changes that you want to make? And if it can't, what do you need to do to shift that?
So how do you determine if you have a problem with it when it's starting to happen? Will the same thing that you're talking about, the people disappear?
So you'll see gaps start to form just in the work output. Things that don't typically get dropped start to get dropped. Minor, let's say you're utilizing a Breezeway software. Everyone does, right? You're utilizing a Breezeway software and you have a monthly report that is consistently run by one individual. It just will start to slip. Things that were part of a normal process will start to fall at the wayside, and you can start to tell. But I think that a very important thing when you're assessing this is to have a trusted outside individual who can view it for you, because it's very often that individuals that are assessing it are the owners, the founders, the people who are entrenched in the day-to-day. So it's harder for them to see those cracks the way that an outside peer may be able to.
So technology, it's often seen as like a solution
Mm.
to operational challenges. We all know that. And what are the indicators? How do you tell? How do you determine whether this tech is actually helping you or versus when it's masking deeper issues that are happening in our operationally?
Yeah, I would say the first step there is to ask your people how many times they're manually working on a project. How many times are you going to use the software and then you have to make a manual change? How many times are your individuals doing that? And you can ask that across any department in any tech. What are your manual workarounds for this system or this issue that you face on a day to day? And that'll help pinpoint whether or not, okay, well, we're not using the software. We're using our workforce to find a solution to a problem with a tool that is kind of just placeholder. So that's always a good place to start.
That's excellent. Or else they're using the tool and then they're taking reports from it and they're manually doing what it's supposed to do automatically. I have seen that in operations happening as well.
Sure.
Yeah, that's excellent. It's an excellent answer because that's true. I love when I ask something to you and you're giving it back to me, and I'm finding examples in property management companies that I've worked with because I've worked with a lot of them over the years, and I'm like, oh yeah, that happened there. Oh, that happened here. So
Yeah.
when a company is transitioning
Mm.
or integrating something new, what is the first operational pain point, pressure point that you typically would look at to see, to see how things are going with that integration or that transition?
I would say to look at your field workers and to assess what's going on with your field workers. So oftentimes there's a snowball effect, and your frontline employees who are out, let's say, doing the physical inspections, and in Breckenridge they're braving the elements, and they are really out there trying to accomplish something that is quite difficult to begin with. And when a new system is brought into the mix and it starts messing with their ability to do their basic tasks, that's a huge red flag. And that's all about communication. Ask your frontline employees how they feel about the system. It's not just about the integration behind the desk in your office space and how those systems are speaking and how that information is getting over. Obviously, that's very important. But at the end of the day, we're field workers. Vacation rental management is about field work. So you really have to check in with those people.
One of the things that I've found with field workers, especially in transitioning software, is that they go after the shiny object a lot of times.
Mm.
I had a situation where a very large company, I think they were like 9 to 1,100, somewhere in between there.
Okay.
They had a product that they were using out in the field, and they changed the product because there was a new product that was much prettier. It had shiny objects in it.
Mm.
And I remember checking back with them after a few months, and they're like, we really like it. It's pretty. It's easy to do, but it doesn't do the same, but we don't have the same functionality. We lost functionality, but it was a prettier product. And I see that, actually, Erin, I see that a lot in property management. We go after shiny objects. So can you walk me through the pillars that you talked about and tell me why these particular areas tend to break first when companies scale?
I have examples kind of per section, like a real ask yourself this question, and then you'll know. I think that's probably the best way to answer this question for you.
Perfect.
So we'll go ahead and dive in there. So we'll start with people. We all know that your operation is really only as strong as the people doing the work. So an example of this would be a coordinator spends half their week solving issues outside their job description because no one has true ownership over it. Ask yourself this question: does my team operate in defined lanes, or are they constantly compensating for system gaps? There's real ways that you can look at these problems and take it back a couple of steps and assess what's going on. It's really hard to stop And to do that when you're in the middle of, let's say, your season or in the middle of your operation, but it is essential to pause and reflect and ask yourself those kinds of questions. So for people, are my teams operating in defined lanes, or are they constantly compensating? That is a great question to ask. So for the workload pillar, so workload is examining how real work is flowing through your team, not just what's written in the org chart. How is actual work distributed and flowing through your team? And is there operational strain occurring there? So an example of this could be during peak weeks, guest messages double and response times start to slip because model is assuming typical days rather than the realistic volume of what's going on. So in that situation, ask yourself, does the amount of work match the team that I have, or does it rely on heroics, which is what I was mentioning before? That's a phrase that I will use over and over again. Does it rely on heroics?
I think the heroics thing is really important because, we know there are key people in our organizations that we depend upon. And one of the most important things we have to do to make sure that we are not relying on those heroic people is to make sure that you have duplication of people who can do what they do. It may take more than one person. I just had a situation where we had one person leave our organization who'd been there for 17 years. Yep. And she had taken care of all different type of aspects of it. But I saw the writing on the wall about 2 years ago, and I started putting systems in place that automated the work that she was doing I actually used a product because I didn't have anybody. I couldn't afford anybody to replace her. And I didn't, we're not thinking about letting her go at the time. I knew she was going to retire because she's brilliant. And she was like, I'm overworked. So the first thing I took away was, financial responsibilities. Then I took away this responsibility. And I just left her with doing, what do you love to do? Do that. And let me see if I can fix the rest. So we put systems in place so that there wasn't a heroic thing. So she just left at the beginning of the month, and it's the middle of the month. And I'm still realize I haven't fixed it yet. So those heroics really do affect your business more than you think. So I love the fact that you brought that up. So what's the next? The next pillar is
process. We'll go into process, which lends itself very well to what you were just saying. So for process, it's going to measure whether your workflows are defined, accessible, and followed consistently. It's really those three. Are they defined? Are they accessible to your team? And are they followed consistently? An example of this is a new home gets onboarded with missing information because there's no universal checklist across departments. So in that instance, ask yourself, if one key person stepped away, which is what you were just describing, happened to you, would the work break or would it continue cleanly? So in the instance you just used, it broke.
It's still broken. I have somebody coming in the next month at the end of the month, and they're coming in, and hopefully that will help me. But I think thinking about these things behind the scenes before it happens is brilliant. I love that.
For sure. If you would have had the opportunity, let's say you knew ahead of time, and if you would have had the opportunity to sit down with that individual and assess, okay, what are the 5 core functions of what it is that you do? I'm sure that person would have said 5. How long do you have? But if you ask them what those 5 are, and if any of them are a surprise to you, it's time to roll up your sleeves and get to work, because losing that person is really going to create a gap that's going to hurt your business.
Such good advice. That is excellent advice in business. Period. Doesn't mind that. And mine is not even a property management business that I'm running. It's a nonprofit. But these are core business principles. What's your next pillar that you've got?
So an example for tech is your PMS is sending duplicative messages because automations were built on old workflows and nobody knows which rule is controlling what. So they just, every single time that duplicative message goes out, and then someone will manually send a third, either saying, please disregard, or correcting the information because it's easier for them to do that.
I've seen this. See, that's the things I've seen.
I'm like, yeah. It happens all the time. So you really just need, in that situation, just ask yourself, do our tools make the work easier or are they creating more of it? In that instance, they're creating more of it. So that's the tech pillar. Your tools have to work for you, bottom line. And
the
then,
other thing, let's turn it
yeah,
around the other way,
yeah,
because we're talking about growth. We'll turn it around the other way. And if, like you said before, there are things they're doing manually outside of their software, and they're doing that every day, then you should be looking to see, is
yeah,
there, and I'm going to say this, so I'm not asking you to get a new tool. That's not where I'm going. Is there a way in the current software that we have, something we're not using?
for sure.
Because there's so much underutilized in technology. So your
Mhm.
first question, if something's not being done, is there a way that I can get my software to do what I need to do? So,
And also ask that question to your software provider, because software providers are, before you go ahead and jump and introduce an entirely new tool, your software provider may already have that on their, Q4 list of things to do, and they may be looking for someone to try a beta out on. So ask your software provider as well if this is something that other people had brought up to them, or if there is a potential solution. They may say, we have that solution, you're just underutilizing the software that you already currently pay for. Or B, that's a great idea, let's get that into development. So don't underestimate that step either.
yeah, I see so often that the case is that they already have that. Someone else has that same problem that you've had,
Yeah.
and they have it, and you're not utilizing that particular part of the software, but you are paying for it. Get what you pay for when it comes to tech. You
Yeah.
guys know my background is tech. You know my background is building software for tech. And I can tell you so many times people have called me, and this is one of Tiffany, my friend Tiffany, who works at Streamline. This is one of her pet peeves. She's like, Linnell, they'll call me and they'll ask me, to get to do this for them, and it's already there.
Mhm.
So here's the thing. The problem is that when we are growing companies, we often overlook those release notes that go out, or we overlook pieces that maybe weren't applicable when we were smaller. And now that we're growing, that piece is not just applicable, but it is there for a reason. So I agree. Built by property managers for property managers, Streamline is a powerful software that gives managers enterprise-level capabilities to drive more revenue and improve operational efficiency. Migrating to Streamline allows property managers to gain functionality while reducing the need for multiple vendors. Improve your flow by logging into a single system and reduce redundant technology costs. With Streamline, property managers achieve revenue lifts by leveraging our fully fledged communication center reservations, quoting system, revenue management tools, homeowner acquisition CRM, and powerful direct OTA connections. Streamline also has industry-leading trust accounting and report capabilities to give you clarity in an overall company performance. Learn more about Streamline Vacation Rental Software at streamlinevrs.com. What is our fifth pillar that we're talking about?
Yeah, our final pillar, and I would argue is one of the most important ones, is coordination. So this pillar is evaluating how well your teams are handing work off, closing loops, communicating during transitions or high volume or cross-market operations. And this is often where high-performing teams quietly lose their efficiency. Let me say that one more time. This is often where high-performing teams quietly lose their efficiency. So a classic example of this is a maintenance issue is resolved in the field, but it never gets communicated back to your guest services team, leaving the guest waiting for an update that should have been immediate and would have likely produced a higher guest satisfaction score. So you really need to ask yourself, do our teams operate as one system or as separate parts, hoping that everything just connects on its own? So that's the coordination pillar.
I think that's fabulous because that's true. Coordination and the communication between the teams is really important. I had someone lay out their team foundation to me recently. And I went back, this is so funny. My sister's a property manager.
Okay.
And I went back to my sister and I said, I had this amazing interview. I said, and would you believe XYZ? And she's like, oh, I'd believe it. She said,
Yeah.
that's exactly how we do it. And I was like, oh, shows how much I know about how things have changed in the last 2 years because of AI. Um, Let me ask you this. What initially drew you, Erin, to the operational side of vacation rental industry rather than, the more traditional hospitality roles, which are a lot more forward facing with the client, I mean with the guest and things like that. What drew you to the operations side?
I would definitely say the puzzle of it all, and the consistent, like the high paced energy, where there are a bunch of problems that need to be solved relatively quickly, and sometimes they are interwoven, sometimes they stand aside. So really, just being able to fix a puzzle, to complete a puzzle rather. So for me, it's that side of ops for sure, the problem solving.
I love ops too, and I was trying to think of that. If I had that same question, I don't know what my answer would be. I love I love the back end of everything and making sure that it's coordinating well and running well.
For
Um,
sure.
I think it's a lot easier than dealing with people, dealing with the processes and those types of things. Let me ask you this: during your time where you helped expand Summit Mountain Rentals as well as Vacasa,
Mm.
what are the leadership lessons you learned that shaped how you approach scaling an operation? Because those are big scalings that you've been through.
When I was in New York, we took on the Finger Lakes, and it was a 15 unit acquisition. And by the next year, I want to say we were at 190 units. And then 6 months after that, they decided that they wanted to take on hotels. And I had never done that before. We had never done that before. So, in that instance, and I guess honestly, throughout my last several roles, it's underestimating the people that you currently have in place, underestimating your existing workforce, and they may be at a more junior position. Their title may not actually reflect the role that they're doing. So allowing for your existing workforce to quietly quit, as we were saying before, because the leadership isn't paying close enough attention to what that individual truly excels at and what they like doing and what they've been a part of building. It's really the people and ensuring that you're taking care of your workforce. And not everyone is a lifer. I mean, some people are just there for, a brief moment in time. I mean, I worked on an island in New York that the island was physically only open for 4 months out of the year. It would shut down in the difference. Like refrigerators would come off the walls. Like it was
Wow.
truly, yeah, it's called Fire Island, actually. I met my husband there. We got married there. It was crazy. It was beautiful. I know.
Little heart, little heart, little heart.
Absolutely. But it was an absolutely incredible place. But, I only needed field workers for 3 months out of the year during the peak summer season and couldn't employ them year round. So it was more than fine. Oh, we got a little visitor. Ma'am, let's go down.
I gotta love
Sorry.
puppies.
Yeah,
Love
sorry.
myself a puppy.
I've got two, and they're the sweetest thing. So, just to go back to your question, definitely do not underestimate your people, regardless of the role that they're currently fulfilling for you. Make sure that you're looking at it looking through that individual's skill set through a lens of where you're trying to go, and if that person can be a part of that growth.
What do you think is the most common mistake that operators make when they're trying to grow quickly?
I would say taking on properties that don't fit your model because you're afraid of not having the numbers. Make sure if you have whatever your USP is, that whatever you set out to go for. So the last market that I went into was down in 30A. That's where we expanded. And based on months of research and deciding where we're going to go, we had a very specific target for the type of homes that we were looking for very real reasons. And if we would have lost sight of what we were trying to accomplish there and bring on homes that didn't match our portfolio or what we were looking to do, it would have created a lot of strain on the organization. So I know that it's difficult when you're watching the months go by and you may not have the pace of growth that you were hoping for because you're concerned about the dollar signs that are very real. But you need to factor those numbers in ahead of time before you go into those markets. You need to assume that that is going to be the case and that it is going to take time. So don't take on properties out of fear. Make sure that you're bringing on units that fit your model and fit your organization, because that strain that you're going to create, you bring on the wrong home and it's outside of your model, and your guest services organization is already struggling with volume or seasonality. And then you throw them a curveball where it's a studio in a high rise and they've never dealt with anything like that before. You're going to create a lot of strain on your organization. And it's hard to see it.
Sure it is. Sure it is hard to see it. But the field workers see it for certain. Immediately they see it.
They're your toughest employees. And in my experience, I have found that with that also means that they can be the quietest because they're used to it being difficult. They're used to their job being tough and a challenge. So a lot of the day-to-day is needing to push through it. But it's, respecting that if someone is coming to you, and better yet, you should be proactively going to them. But if someone is coming to you with some kind of a gut check or a red flag, you really do need to assess it and not dismiss it.
How do you maintain clarity and structure when you're stepping into organizations that are just having operational chaos because of their growth?
I mean, in that instance, and I've seen it before and I've been a part of it before, it is sometimes a hard reset is necessary. Sometimes a hard pause button needs to be pressed. And although what that looks like physically is more than not a complete pause of operations and getting everyone in together for a structured reset. You don't shut your operation down. Although I did, in my previous organization, we had one of the best rules ever where for 2 weeks in our slow season, we did not accept new reservations during that time. So our teams did get a break. We did offer that to our employees, which was an incredible gesture. But if you're in operational chaos, you are likely in a mindset that you need to continue pushing through to the break point. If I just keep pushing and if I just keep hammering away at it, I'm going to hit a break point and there's going to be a release, because more than not, we all have that with seasonality shifts, right? That break does come. But if you are a growing operator, particularly if you're, let's say, a winter market that is now becoming a summer market, that break doesn't exist anymore. So you have to forcibly find that time and make the time for that reset, because that chaos is just going to take you off the rails.
What part of helping companies rebuild and grow, what part gives you the most satisfaction in that job that you've had?
I think that for me, it's been the people that I've been working with and being able to sit down and assess the situation, and for someone to finally feel that they've been heard, that the issue or the problem that they're bringing up is, it is problematic, and they're not trying to complicate things further or complain or be, that employee. They really are trying to raise their hand and say, there's something going wrong here. I don't know how to fix it. And honestly, I don't even know how to communicate to my leadership team or to my fellow peers what is actually going on. So being able to provide a solution to that kind of situation and see the lightness, kind of like a little light bulb goes on where it's, it doesn't have to be like this. It can be better. That problem can be solved. I would definitely say that moment. That is the moment why I work as hard as I do, for that moment.
What is your favorite property management owner or guest story?
I don't know why that like immediately made me giggle. I think you always think about the crazy ones first.
Of course, and that's the one I want to hear about.
I haven't been asked that question in quite some time. I think that it has to be a golden moment. It has to be, when you're working in the hospitality industry, you always hear the bad things. For every positive, your guest services agent is fielding 10 negatives. Like, where is the spoon? You're ruining my vacation. It's like, just, I don't imagine that's true.
But they think it is. They believe every bit of that.
It's the end of the world. And I mean, we're there to solve that problem. Like, I'm not here to judge how much you care about spoons. Like, if that really matters to you, we're going to bring you a spoon. And that's totally fine. But I think that there was one specific instance when I was in New York, and a woman took the time to write me a handwritten letter thanking me for providing her with I knew it was a family reunion, so I went the extra mile, and I put out like a whole cookie making kit so that she could make cookies with her grandkids and just kind of have that experience, because it was on that island and the weather was poor. And when you're there, there's nothing to do. If you can't be outside, there's nothing to do. There's no cars. You ride bikes around. It's just an absolutely incredible place. So I set all of that out, and she wrote me the most beautiful note ever, thanking me for, doing that for her and her family. And it was such an easy gesture. It really was, one of the easier things that I've done, but I still have the card. I mean, it was years ago that I got it, and that definitely meant the world to me.
That's very precious.
I've got the crazy ones, but we'll leave it on the precious ones.
I like the cookie one too. The cookie's a good story. Is there any other advice that you would give property managers that are looking to grow, Erin?
Just make sure that you've taken the time, be it a full audit, working with someone else, or just self-reflecting. Make sure that you've done your diligence on your own organization to assess whether or not you're really ready. I mean, you can push through as operators. We can push through any problem. We can solve any problem. And that mentality is why some of us are as successful as we are. But that does not mean that you don't need to do the diligence to stop and ask yourself, are my people ready? Is the workload something that can be handled? Are the processes in place? Do we have the right tech? Is everyone coordinating? You have to ask those questions before you grow. And if you ask yourself those and the answer is tick, 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 go for it. Nothing's stopping you. But just know that, that those are all going to evolve. But you have to keep your finger on the pulse for each of those before deciding to grow. You just do.
I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time. If people want to reach out to you, if they have questions and they just go, hey, I'd like to reach out to Erin, how would they reach you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's a great place. Or they can just reach out directly, Erin@theboothcollective.com or hello@theboothcollective.com.
Erin's spelled E-R-I-N, guys. E-R-I-N-B-O-O-T-H. You can find her on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, Linnell. I've really enjoyed this.
This episode of the Vacation Rental Show is brought to you by Streamline. To find out more about how Streamline can grow your vacation rental business, visit streamlinevrs.com. Make sure to search for the Vacation Rental Show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Inhabit, thanks for listening.